Two dicks, wow.
Yeah! Here we go! Here we go! Here we go!
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the 1IQ Football Talk podcast.
And having to go, yeah, but he did kind of do this.
What I'm hearing is you just want Tom Brady dead. Like, that's all I'm hearing at this point. You just want Brady dead.
Well, not anymore. He's retired now, so I'm good with that. I don't want him calling games anymore because, holy hell, he's hard to listen to.
Enough angry and, depressing from myself. Sterling, thank you for being able to sit there as my therapist for this episode.
Start the game already!
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the 1IQ Football Talk podcast. Brendan and Sterling coming at you, and we are very much in the middle of preseason. But first off, buddy, how you doing?
Doing good, man. I mean, we had some football last weekend. We were both busy doing various things, so we weren't able to get a pod out for you guys last week, with the first round of preseason games. But with when we record, most of our games hadn't been played anyway, and so we wouldn't have been covering that stuff.
Yeah, it was one of those things where it was just one of those awkward weeks, and so be it. But nonetheless, we are back this week, and we have, obviously, if you're looking at the title, it probably says our record prediction for our team. We are not going to quite jump on that as of yet. We're going to start by talking about the actual preseason stuff, and talking about some of the stuff that we saw from each of our teams throughout this training camp so far and throughout the preseason game. And
Yeah.
it is going to be a very Steelers and Bears heavy episode this week. Because again, during preseason, I'll throw a game on, but I'm not really paying attention to it. It's basically just background noise as opposed to me actually sitting there watching all of the games. But yeah, so I think we should start with your Steelers in how you felt they did in their preseason game.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, for myself, even with my Steelers, I don't end up watching the entire preseason games. Like, I watched the first quarter on my big screen, and then I threw it onto the small screen for the end of the first half. And I don't even think I watched the second half because by then it's Skylar Thompson and all the backups, and like that, I don't care. I want to see Mason Rudolph and how he performs, some Caleb Johnson, a little bit of Roman Wilson, and I did. I got a little bit of all of it. It was a decent preseason game as far as the Steelers go, and so they moved the ball well. There weren't a lot of hiccups like we've seen in the last few years, so maybe Arthur Smith has finally started to pull his head out. We got to see some big plays from guys like Darnell Washington and Roman Wilson, so that was excellent to see. Those soft hands on that big monster Darnell Washington on a big streak play down the middle of the field. So everything's looking good there. And then on the defensive side as well, it's been good. But, there's older guys, and so through training camp and stuff, we saw, a few rolled ankles, some stepped on feet. So, Darius Slay was a little sore, Jalen Ramsey's a little sore. But I think once we get to the regular season, these guys are all going to be feeling healthy and good. We saw some great things this year out of, I can't remember which round they took him in. I think it was like the 4th or the 5th, Yaya Black, defensive tackle, nose tackle. And he just got better every day throughout practice and all the way up into that preseason game, and showing some real strides and some potential to maybe be that guy that can finally replace Cam Hayward when he retires, or with the drama that came out this week, who knows when he gets traded away. Like, it's that is probably the biggest news for the Steelers this week is Cam Hayward being a dingus again.
Well, and just jumping on to that conversation with Cam Hayward, I saw that, and I wasn't necessarily surprised because the immediate quote that I heard afterward was Cam Hayward basically just sitting back and saying, I told the Steelers that if it was an all-pro season, I was coming back to the table, and they needed to expect that. And Cam Hayward had his best season in probably the last 4 or 5 years and was phenomenal. So the Steelers knew this was coming. And
they did. It's just it from the fan standpoint, we look at it and it's frustrating just because, like, dude, they restructured and paid you last year, 11 months ago. It hasn't even been a full year
Hmm.
since the last time you pulled this exact same thing. And yeah, you had a great season last year. Nobody's arguing that, but you also did miss 4 games with injury. And it's like every season you've been missing a little bit more and a little bit more. And so it's getting harder and harder to pay you more money when you're missing more games. And like, yeah, but like last year, you set the record for highest paid non-quarterback player over 35 years old. Like he said, like that's what they restructured him to, and so he
Yeah.
was the highest paid there. And it's like now he wants it again, and it's like at some point he's got to either stop this or the Steelers need to put an end to it because it's setting a bad precedent to all the younger players where it's like, oh, we're just here for the money and not to win a championship, which you know me, I'm not about that.
Well, and honestly, I think that Cam Hayward might be at this stage of his career where he's looking at the Steelers organization and going, this team isn't going to win a championship anytime soon, so I'm going to get my money while I can. Because like he wasn't a part of that last Super Bowl team, was he? Because that was back in
No.
'07, so that was a long time ago. But for a dude that has had a ton of success with this team and organization, and then looked at the last 7 years, 8 years of going like, we can't even get past the first round of the playoffs. And when we do get past the first round of the playoffs, it's just because we got a bye and then we got blown out by the Browns at home in Pittsburgh. And so it, like, I think it might be a little bit of shifting from his perspective, going, this team isn't going to win a Super Bowl, and I'm still playing at my very best. I'm giving everything that I can for these guys, so of course I'm going to demand more. And I don't
Yeah,
blame him,
and
really.
like you said, the team knew this was coming. He knew this was coming. The part that frustrates a lot of fans, I think, is the fact that he decided to make it public again. Like, I think we were all pretty certain that by the start of the season, his contract would have been restructured, even if he hadn't gone public. It almost feels like it's just him going, well, all the spotlight was on the rookies and the young guys and Aaron Rodgers, and nobody's watching my podcast right now, so I need to make sure people remember who I am. And so, hey guys, I want more money, and then
People start to
boost his
tune in a little
own
bit. Yeah.
ratings as a result. Like that's more what it feels like, and it just feels disingenuous.
I hear you, but obviously, if he basically says to the Steelers, or if the Steelers just stand put and go like, we're not giving you any more money, like, this is
Mhm.
ridiculous, and they trade him, well, they have made moves to try to look to replace him years past, and you're not going to get a good pick for him. You're going to get maybe like a fifth rounder, if that kind of situation. But it's one of those things where, the Steelers are probably just going to look at him and give him the wide receiver treatment.
Yeah, I mean they're gonna pay it. Like they're gonna restructure his contract again. They'll add another year onto it. They'll bump up his pay so he's among the highest paid. They might try to just convince him and be like, "Hey, we're not gonna make you the highest paid 36-year-old non-quarterback, but you're gonna be in the top 5 still."
Yeah.
I think is what they're gonna do. And I don't have any doubt that that's gonna get done. It was more just annoying that he did that and took away from the attention that should have been on the rookies and the preseason starters and the guys playing those games. The guys like I mentioned Roman Wilson and Yaya Black and
Caleb
Peyton
Johnson.
Wilson. I didn't even mention him. Peyton Wilson was unbelievable. He was playing his first game wearing the earpiece helmet on defense and calling the plays on defense, and he did a great job. He was all over the field, and it was great to see, and saw some good plays out of Jack Sawyer as well. It was a little concerning when he decided to suplex that one player, and it's like, come on, man, you're gonna get yourself fined, and you haven't even played an actual game yet.
Yeah.
But
You're
no,
going to have to take a loan out just to pay your
right?
fine.
Exactly. All things considered, though, like as far as preseason goes, and you know me, I always take preseason with a grain of salt. The Pittsburgh Steelers looked good. The youth that they've got, the things that are coming up, what they're planning to do with the offense. If this was the true look, then it looks good.
Yeah. And obviously, we got to all see that Caleb Johnson stiff arm to Travis Hunter, which made its way around. And because again, like Caleb Johnson came into the NFL as like a Derrick Henry-esque type back, and everyone was really interested to see what Travis Hunter was going to look like at the NFL level, and he's getting slammed to the ground on the first NFL game of his career on defense. And it's like, okay, there's a reason that they're starting you as a wide receiver and not a corner right now. And
Right. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't as impressed by that stiff arm because he finished putting him to the ground, but like you watch that play, Travis Hunter was going down already anyway.
yeah.
He was going for a shoestring tackle, and Caleb Johnson was just like, nope, I'm just gonna move you just a little bit far away so you can't hit my ankle.
Oh, I'm not
That's all
saying
it
it's
was.
like one of those impressive plays. I'm just saying it's kind of funny that, you
It
know, the
was.
second overall pick is getting absolutely bodied on that
Well, and
sort of
on
play.
both sides of the ball too. Like Trevor Lawrence, preseason game 1, and he was already trying to kill Brian Thomas Jr. and um
Travis Hunter.
Travis Hunter, like it just throwing the ball over middle and into bad spots and letting these guys get blown up by the second string secondary of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Because Joey Porter Jr., Jalen Ramsey, and Darius Slay, none of them played that game.
Mm.
You know, it was all the guys vying for those extra 2 spots basically, and so it was they had a field day though, hitting Brian Thomas and rocking Travis Hunter a bunch. It wasn't a great outing for the Jags, aside from their kicker hitting a 70-yard field goal.
Which, I mean, the worst part about that is it doesn't even count. It's
No,
not even the
preseason,
record.
so it doesn't actually count as a record. Exactly. So now
Yeah.
he's gonna have to come back and do that again in the regular season.
I mean, like it's
Maybe.
great to know if you're Trevor Lawrence, all you have to do is get it to like the 40-yard line of your own side of the field, and you are
Yeah.
theoretically in field goal range of your kicker. Like that right there is unbelievably exciting. Now again, they're not going to roll out there week to week and go like, oh, it's a 65-yarder. Go out there and just hit the bomb. Like it's not going to be that sort of situation, but like it's one of those things of knowing that you can kind of have that. It's really interesting. But you brought up a great point of Trevor Lawrence continuing to throw suicide balls to his own receivers, and it's like you should probably stop trying to get your guys killed. You know, just a wise idea.
Right. Yeah, he's like, my brain got scrambled last year, so I want you guys to join me this year.
We are the CTE brothers. Someone sign Antonio Brown quick.
Right? Oh my God. But yeah, I mean, boiling it all down, I was impressed with what I saw at Steelers training camp. I enjoyed what I saw in that first quarter of the first preseason game. And I'm looking forward to the next few. You know, like you guys know, we record on a Saturday, so the second preseason game for the Steelers for me is coming up in about 6 hours. So I'll watch probably the first quarter again because they'll likely start Mason Rudolph and then move on to Skylar Thompson, and that's probably when I will roll out, because even with Skylar Thompson doing well, I don't see the Steelers keeping him on the roster and putting Will Howard onto the practice squad. I think it'll still be the other way. They'll throw Skylar Thompson on the practice squad, and if somebody else grabs him, somebody else grabs him. But they use that draft pick on Will Howard, and I don't think they're going to put him in a spot where another team can take him away, so he will likely still be the third string for this team.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, obviously. Preseason is always preseason. You can only take so much. Like, I'll watch all the game that I can. Like I'll try to watch all 4 quarters of my team in the preseason, because there are always some guys that you'll see in the preseason and you're like, oh damn, like yeah, sure, he's playing against third string guys, but he's dominating these third string guys. And like you can just slowly kind of watch these guys continue to build off of that. And like it's always fun to kind of see some of those players from time to time. But yeah, I didn't get to actually watch the entire Bears first preseason game because I was calling a football game of my own. That was painful to say the least, but that's nor here nor there. The biggest thing for me was, obviously I wanted to know how a couple of players were going to ultimately look in the game, and how was Ben Johnson going to look? And, well, needless to say, there are a handful of clips of Ben Johnson that are absolutely hilarious out there. When the Bears got that first big defensive stop when the Dolphins were right on their goal line, and Noah Sewell able to get that one, Ben Johnson's just fired up from his defense making a play. And then when the Bears got their first touchdown in the second half, there's a situation where Ben is just screaming into the mic and he looks furious and he's basically like cursing out his offense while also calling the play that happens to result in a touchdown. I know I sent you the video, but it's just one of those hilarious things where it's like this guy is so mad that he's just forcing the team. He's going like, all right, fuck you guys. This is going to be a touchdown. Go goddamn score it. Like I know,
Yeah.
and it just happened to be that way. And it's everything I ever wanted from my head coach to be such a psychopath going like, this isn't working. I'm forcing you guys to score now.
Yeah, I mean that's great to see, but that's also concerning to see because that is not a sustainable practice.
No.
Like
Now, it was the second team offense though, so.
it was exactly,
Yeah.
and that's just it. It's preseason. If this is happening in week 4 still of regular season, then it might be time to hit the warning flags.
Well, I'm not going to be worried that because I think people forget that Ben Johnson's offense is one of the most complex in the NFL. So I've been saying to Bears fans, you need to be patient with the starting offense because we forget that Jared Goff, when he first got into this offense, he was coached by Sean McVay, someone who had a very complicated offense. And it's not like the Lions, when Ben Johnson took over play calling, were immediately this 40-point per game scoring offense and just being this elite level. Like, it took them a little bit of time with all guys that had experience. Like, again, we're talking about Jared Goff coming from Sean McVay. So, like, he had experience in very, very experienced offenses and tough offenses. And so I'm sitting back, people going like, all right, listen. Caleb Williams, a second-year quarterback, he's essentially a rookie from what everyone is saying at camp. It's like, listen, everything that Matt Eberflus and Shane Waldron did last year was so bad, he's essentially a rookie this year, which is annoying, but, like, you know, it is what it is.
That's just it. Like, if I'm not mistaken, it took, what, about a year, like a season and a half for that Detroit Lions team to actually start clicking and firing. They had the one bad season, and then
Ben Johnson wasn't the offensive coordinator at that point.
oh, okay, so it wasn't okay. So
Yeah,
then
so
it was the season where it started bad, and then they went on the winning streak at the end. So
yeah,
just
it was
one
basically
off
like the first half of that season where the offense was showing a lot of promise, and it's like, okay, like this offense can get stuff going, but
Right, and they
it took that little bit of time to get, like, it was that ramp up, and then after that point when the offense started to click, it was like, and you guys are all screwed now. And
yeah, I couldn't remember if it was just the one season or if they had a full season before that where their struggles were still happening. I couldn't remember when exactly he came in, but I just remember that they had that one season where it was they were barely losing all their games, and then they went on like a 6-game winning streak to finish
it was like a
the season or something.
7-game win streak to finish
Right,
the
and
year,
then they
knocking
continued
the
it into the start of the next year where they just kept winning, and everybody's like, "Oh shit, okay, the Lions are here now."
yeah, the Lions are for real.
No.
But yeah, there some of the players that I was impressed with from that game. Austin Booker, the 5th-round pick from 2024's draft, where, you know, again, everyone sat back and said Austin Booker, he probably should have stayed at school for one more year, but he chose to enter the draft, and everyone's like, this dude is Max Crosby light, essentially. And what I said this last year when the Bears drafted him, I said, if he can be 80% of what Max Crosby is, I'll be a very happy man. And he goes out there and gets 3 sacks and a forced fumble as well, and looked every bit of what Max Crosby should be. Again, my old man was watching the game, and he is a Raiders fan, and he said to me, I didn't even tell him about the Max Crosby stuff. He goes, this dude, do you know who he reminds me of? I'm like, no, who? He's like, he looks like a light version of Max Crosby. And I'm like, yep. And you're starting to see that. And going into this week, he had a really good week of practice, and the Bears and Bills had a joint practice, just like how the Bears and Dolphins had a joint practice. Austin Booker looked phenomenal during that joint practice, and ever since the Bears stopped doing their install period with their offense, like installing new things. The last 3 practices, the Bears offense has been elite, where it's like Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze and Zacchaeus, one of the wide receivers that we brought in through free agency, have been lights out. Colston Loveland has looked really good. The one big thing that I'm kind of a little bit worried about is the fact that DJ and Caleb aren't necessarily on that same page. But the beauty of it is we did draft Rome Odunze with the 9th overall pick last year. He was said to be this Devontae Adams level wide receiver. You drafted Luther Burden this year, who is a phenomenal wideout. And if Zacchaeus has a really good year, that means that DJ Moore could be expendable, which gives you you're getting a first round pick for DJ Moore at this stage if you decide to trade him away, which allows you to do just that much more with your team with what you want to do. Colston Loveland is starting to look every bit of what we drafted him to be, and the offensive line is, like, again, during this joint practice with the Bills, going up against that defensive line, the O-line looked comfortable. They kept Caleb upright, and it was one of those things where it was like, okay, like, yeah, the Caleb trusts his O-line in front of him, even knowing he has the left tackle being a 4-way battle between, our starting left tackle last year, Braxton Jones, Kareem Amagaje, who was a 3rd-round pick last year, Ozzie Trapillo, who was a 2nd-round pick this year, and undrafted Canadian free agent from last season, Theo Benedict, who actually played in U Sports for University of British Columbia, is now also putting himself in that battle because he's played so goddamn well. And as a Bears fan who hasn't seen offensive line play be that good, to hear a lot of reports that it is looking good, especially against a Bills defensive line, you're sitting back going like, okay, like, yeah. But the biggest thing from these last 2 joint practices has been the defense causing fits. Tua threw 3 picks against the Bears defense. You're going like, okay, that's Tua. Josh Allen comes in, had 2 picks against the Bears defense this joint practice as well, and was causing a lot of mayhem. And Caleb Williams and the offense looked very good on 7-on-7 and 11-on-11.
Yeah, and it is nice when the offensive line starts coming together. That was one of the things I didn't mention with the Steelers too, where it was just actually seeing a pocket form and your quarterback able to step into it. It's such a relief after years of subpar O-line play. But for your Bears, I think the biggest takeaway I had this week was just the mild, almost hesitation that I've noticed from DJ Moore when he's talking about how he's the guy that's being moved into sort of that gadget role where he's going to be coming out of the backfield a little bit, almost like a Deebo Samuel is how it sounds like Ben Johnson wants to use him. And it just doesn't sound like DJ Moore is completely sold or comfortable on it. And that could hurt his numbers, which then would hurt his trade value a little bit. So that's a bit concerning. I'd like to see Ben Johnson still use him more traditionally like his talent allows, which would then continue to elevate that trade value if, as you say, happens and all these other young guys start to take those big leaps and the Bears organization can look at it and go, who can we ship DJ Moore to and get a haul?
Yeah. And when it comes to DJ Moore, like, I know in the press conference that he was kind of talking about some of that stuff. People kind of see that. That's just kind of DJ's personality. He's always kind of that little bit more reserved. But, like, I know what you mean. And DJ Moore has always been described when he has the football in his hands, he's a running back.
Yeah.
Just like when the ball gets into his hands, like, he's a really, really difficult guy to take down. And that's kind of why they're using him in the backfield. They're just kind of looking at this going like, hey, like, there's going to be really, really good options to use you. Now, I don't think you're going to see him be utilized quite as much as what Deebo Samuel was in the 49ers. But yeah, it could be interesting. But
Yeah, I look at DJ Moore and I go, he's just so much better on the outside.
He
Like
really
he
is.
looks like a running back when the ball gets into his hand because he's going up against safeties and corners.
Yeah.
He doesn't look
When
quite
he
as much like
gets
a
that,
running back when he has to
what a
go up against
linebacker.
linebackers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's where my concern comes in, is moving him in the backfield. That moves him into the middle of the field where he's so much better on the boundaries, in my opinion. And so I get that. Maybe Ben Johnson is planning on, adding a little bit of that, like the what I call the Matt offense, Matt Nagy, Matt Canada, where it's going to be him in motion out of the backfield into the backfield, that sort of stuff,
Yeah.
just to confuse the defenses, use them as almost like a decoy. I just wanted to see your face on that one.
Yeah, well, and you saw it, and you got the reaction you wanted to.
Yeah.
It just you can see the both pain, fear, rage building up in my eyes.
Truthfully though, it will be good. DJ Moore is talented. I think it's going to take time.
Yep.
That's like we said. It took a while for Jared Goff, who is a veteran, to really start to grasp and be able to utilize this Johnson offense. Caleb Williams is, as you said, almost like a rookie coming into this season. And so there's both good and bad to that. The good being, he's likely a little bit more malleable and able to coach into that role, whereas Jared Goff had many more years doing it a certain way. And it's, the saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what this is. Caleb Williams is a little bit more green, and so it'll be easier, I think, for Ben Johnson to get this system into Caleb Williams. It's just going to be the rest of the guys around, the DJ Moores, the Romo Dunzes, the Cole Kmets, the DeAndre Swifts, if they can really start to get their roles in place properly. Because honestly, like a backfield with Caleb Williams back there, DeAndre Swift on one side and DJ Moore on the other is terrifying to think about, because you don't know which one of them is catching the ball or running the ball, or if either of them is even going to be involved. But
Because you could have Luther Burden, Romo Dunze, all the different other weapons that could be out there.
Create a scary dynamic, because we know DeAndre Swift can catch the ball out of the backfield as well. We know DJ Moore has soft hands, so there could be some interesting, unique things that we see out of this Bears offense. I am excited to watch that for sure.
Yeah, and again, still preseason, so it is kind of what it is. But this ultimately leads us into the main discussion of what we came here today. And we do this every single year, where we go over our team's roster or record predictions, where both of us look at both our teams, both mine being the Bears and yours being the Steelers. We predict each of those two teams. Both of us have been actually pretty accurate these last couple of years when we've done this.
We tend to be more accurate with our own teams as opposed to each other's teams.
Yeah. But even then, like when we're kind of talking about each other's teams, we're usually only 1 or 2 games off in terms of the record. Now, again, when we say our record prediction, it is one of those things where it's, we not going to get every single game right in this aspect, but we're usually fairly solid on where the numbers are. And
yeah, like I think last year I got the Steelers record spot on, but 6 of the games were different win-loss wise, and so I didn't predict the exact games they were getting the wins and losses, but I got the record right.
Yeah. So speaking of the Steelers, I think that's where we should start. And obviously, you being the Steelers fan, I think you should go over your record prediction for your team first, and then I will go through kind of mine after that.
Well, why don't we go together?
We can do that.
I'll tell you what I think, and then you can throw what your prediction is for each one. So I mean, Steelers week 1, we have
New York
sort
Jets.
of a grudge match sort of setup. We're going to New York playing the Jets, so we got Justin Fields as quarterback there, Aaron Rodgers quarterback in Pittsburgh. So there's going to be a little bit of familiarity on both sides of the ball for both teams. I think it's going to be an interesting game as a result, but ultimately we know what Justin Fields is. You and I very well know what Justin Fields is, and it's, if that first read's not there, he doesn't know what to do with the ball, and that first read for him is either going to be covered by Jalen Ramsey or Joey Porter Jr. So it's not going to be open. I don't think it's going to go well for the Jets. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to go back into MetLife and get a fairly convincing win against the Jets in week 1.
Speaking of Justin Fields and his first read, he had one of his press conferences this week where he said like, "Oh, I'm really into like reading my Bible and that kind of thing." And someone said, "Oh, you know, it'd be really good if you could read your second read." You know, and just made that comment, which I thought was hilarious because again, that has been his biggest problem is his processor. When I looked at this game, I went, this is one of those weird games where I could see both teams winning, but for very dumb reasons. Where the Steelers should easily be the favorites in this game. They should easily go out there and win this game. But this is also the Steelers of the last few years of where they've just dumb things. And we talked about it pre-podcast where it was when we're talking about this, the Steelers lose games throughout the year that they simply just shouldn't lose. Like I remember thinking the Cowboys last year while they were in Pittsburgh, that should have never been a loss for the Steelers, but they ended up dropping that game. I know you're kind of shaking.
That was one of those weird games where there was like a 3-hour weather delay, so they weren't even playing the fourth quarter until it was after midnight local time. So
yeah,
there were a lot of external forces for that one, but that is what happens with the Steelers. Because I did say that before we went on, where what my final record is for the Steelers, I think they're going to have one more loss than this, and this is one of those games where it might end up being that loss because it's going to be first game of Aaron Rodgers likely, because I don't expect to see him at all in the preseason. We know what Aaron Rodgers is like. So it's going to be his first snaps getting calls from Arthur Smith. So there will be some messy exchanges in that first quarter for sure.
Yeah, and this is just one of those weird things where I look at, for instance, Aaron Glenn, who is now the new head coach of the Jets. I've said this throughout this entire offseason. The Jets have a good roster. They don't have all the pieces that are there, but they have a good roster. Their defense is very capable of being a top 10, top 5 defense in the NFL. And with Aaron Glenn out there, with all those guys likely going to be fully healthy, that defense could do some really, really dangerous things. And with the Steelers offense, me still not being convinced that they're going to do much with the talent that they have, it kind of goes one way or the other for me. But ultimately, I do think the Steelers are going to win because I think Aaron Rodgers is better at the quarterback position than Justin Fields. I think the Steelers defense, they're going to be spring chickens out there, being as fresh as they possibly can be. And I think that's what's ultimately going to cause the Steelers to get this win. But this is one of those games I could easily see going either way.
Yeah, 100%. And so going into week 2 is the Steelers home opener, and that is against the Seattle Seahawks coming into town. I'm not terribly worried about the Seahawks. They had a lot of changes, a lot of turnover last year. It's Mike McDonald's, I think, second year as the head coach, and it feels like this team is still learning and growing, and I don't think they're going to have everything clicking with Sam Darnold and Jackson Smith and Jigba. I'm not even sure if Kenneth Walker's 100% yet. So this one was a fairly easy one for me to say the Steelers are going to win.
Yeah, this was not a challenging one for me. I think the Steelers are going to win this one. I think Sam Darnold has improved from he improved last year, but that was also the head coach, I think, ultimately getting the most out of him. I don't think Mike McDonald is going to do much with this team. Again, everyone knows if you've watched the podcast for any period of time, I don't like defensive-minded head coaches. I think you have a very low ceiling in terms of what you can do with a lot of those coaches.
Yeah.
I think the Steelers come in. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be a little bit more comfortable in that offense. They're going to be able to move the ball a little bit more. And ultimately, it's going to be your defense that wins you guys that game.
Yep. Yeah, and it'll be Aaron Rodgers' first experience in a Steelers jersey in front of that Steelers crowd, which is just wild. So I think he'll get fired up as he does. Week 3, the Steelers are traveling to Foxborough to take on the Patriots, where the Steelers typically don't have a lot of luck in New England, but this is fairly early in the season, so the weather should be a little bit better. This is Mike Vrabel's Patriots now. He's just really starting the rebuild. He has a good quarterback. We don't know exactly where Stephon Diggs is going to stand at the start of the season here, if he's going to play or not. But honestly, I think this is a growing pains season for the Patriots. I think they'll win more games than they're expected to. I don't think this will be one of them, though. I think the Steelers go into New England and pull out a win in week 3.
This is one of those games where I don't think it is quite as 50-50 as what I had with the Jets, but I think this is going to be a really, really close game. I think the biggest struggle that you're going to see is the Steelers offense trying to run away in this game. I think that's going to be the biggest thing that's going to keep this close, because Mike Vrabel is a phenomenal defensive minded coach, and he's going to have that defense playing on all cylinders. And as we all know, I don't have faith in the Steelers offense, even with Aaron Rodgers and Arthur Smith. So I think this game is going to be close, but I think, again, this is going to be a game where the Steelers defense is just going to be too much for the young Drake May, and there's just not a lot of star talent on that offense for the Patriots. And that's if they had, let's say, a number one receiver and a more reliable tight end, I might actually give the Patriots the win in this game. But seeing as there's just not a lot of certified talent on that offense, I'm giving the win to the Steelers in this one. But I think it's going to be a close game.
Yeah, and I mean, ultimately, that's the tough thing with the Steelers in any of these predictions right now is we don't know what the offense is going to look like, so we can't trust it.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these predictions is based on, the defense is going to win these games, because if the Steelers look like they have for the last 4 years, that's going to be the case.
Yeah.
Whereas if Aaron Rodgers is able to find some of that old flair of his, then we might be looking at this going, the Steelers, instead of winning close games 16-14, they're actually winning games, 24-14, 27-14, and it's more comfortable. But we won't know that until we get 3 or 4 weeks into the year.
Yeah.
And that leads us to week 4, which is the Steelers going overseas with the Vikings to play. Is it in Ireland?
I think it's Ireland, yeah.
Is it Ireland? I couldn't remember if it was Ireland or not, but so it's Viking Steelers in Ireland. This is where I have the Steelers picking up their first loss this year. I don't think they're gonna travel great. They're gonna have a ferociously great home crowd. There are a lot of Steelers fans over there. I don't know if a lot of the older guys are gonna hold up to the travel or not. You got Aaron Rodgers, Cam Hayward, Jalen Ramsey. These guys are a little on the older side. There's that jet lag effect. So I think this will be the first loss for the Steelers.
And this is where we first have our disagreement of the Steelers record prediction. I think the Steelers are still going to beat the Vikings. And the biggest thing for me is JJ McCarthy. And because JJ McCarthy, we talked about a little bit earlier in the podcast that Caleb Williams is essentially feeling like a rookie. JJ McCarthy is basically going to be a rookie, because it's not like he was a backup the entirety of last year where, he was out there on the practice field. He was out the entire season with injury. So this is his first, I guess this is his second training camp, because he tore his knee in training camp last year, but he didn't have a full season of practice. So he's going to basically have a doctorate in how Kevin O'Connell wants to run his offense. But it's going to be a very, very tough thing for him, especially early on in the season at this point. And I think going overseas isn't going to help him. And going up against that defense of the Steelers, that's going to be the biggest factor. And I think the Steelers are going to win this one. Again, probably going to be fairly close, though.
This was a tough one for me, because I had it as a win originally, and then I changed it. If this was on U.S. soil, then it was 100% a win for me, just because we know how Mike Tomlin and those defenses just devour rookie quarterbacks. That is one of the things he's made his name on.
Yep.
And it's just the travel that has me concerned that they might just be a little bit flat. And so that's why it might not work out. That's the only reason I threw them the loss instead of the win, because, like you said, J.J. McCarthy against this defense, I think T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith Jalen Ramsey, they're going to eat it up.
Yeah.
It also will be the first week back for Jordan Addison after his 3-game suspension. So there could be some hiccups there for the Vikings. Week 5, the Steelers have their bye after going overseas, and then week 6 they play the Browns. I just can't recall if it is home or away. It is a home game against the Browns. Not that it matters, because I expect the Browns to be a dumpster fire this year. They have some talent, but as always with the Browns, they find ways to hurt themselves. And right now it's by having 6 quarterbacks on their depth chart. Like, they cannot decide who they want at quarterback. And
A lot of
now
it's
there's a
due to
whole bunch
injury, though, too. So
there is due to injury, and inappropriate touching is the reason they need that many on there, for sure. But either way, it's like, what I just don't have faith in the Browns, man. Like, I don't see them winning. The Steelers win this game.
yeah, this is one of those things where I very easily quickly picked the Steelers to win this game. The more that we've talked about today, and the more that I've thought about it, there's just this feeling that I have that the Steelers are going to drop a game to the Browns this year. Because again, we've talked about the Steelers just dropping games they shouldn't drop. I think this is still too early in the season, and I'm not going to change any of my predictions for this as well. But this is still early in the season where I think the Browns are still going to kind of be in that little bit of that clusterfuckery mode of where it's like, and I think the Steelers are going to ultimately get this win. I don't think this is necessarily going to be a close one. I think the Browns are still kind of in that figure some shit out moment for that at that time.
The Browns defense even got a little bit worse this year. Yeah, they still have Myles Garrett, but they did lose a couple other pieces, and so that will hurt them for sure. And yeah, that's the thing with the Browns. It's weird is they start off their season just complete dumpster fire, and then they get good in the middle of the season,
and then they finish off bad.
And they go, oh wait, we're the Browns, and to end the season they start shitting the bed again.
Yeah.
And so if you play them in between weeks like 9 and 13, then you're in trouble.
Yeah.
But
anywhere else, it's
a win. Following week, the Steelers will travel to Cincinnati against Joe Burrow. This is going to be a hell of a shootout, I think. This is going to be one of those games where we see the final score being something like 48-45. I think this will be the first time we see the Steelers offense hit that high octane level. But Aaron Rodgers is not as young as Joe Burrow. He's not going to be able to keep pace. And the Bengals will win this game in a high-scoring shootout in Cincinnati.
Yeah, the Bengals offense is... We all know what the Bengals offense is. They're probably the best offense in the NFL going into this season, with just all the pieces that they have. I think Joe Burrow is going to be a man on a mission this year, where he's kind of looking at it going like... There's a lot of talk this offseason, this, and that. I think he's a man on a mission that he's basically sitting back saying, like, I'm going to will this team to win if I have to. And I think if he has to score 50 points a game, that's going to be his mindset. But yeah, I just don't think the Steelers offense can keep up. And honestly, I think this could potentially be a blowout for the Bengals, of where, you know, when I say blowout, it's closer to be like 43 to like 28 type situation, of where it's like the Steelers get the offense going, but they just can't compete. And again, my faith in the Steelers offense, very, very low. And it's lower than what I think the Bengals defense is capable of doing this season, but even then, I think it's going to be probably a decent day offensively for the Steelers, but it's just going to be an absolute nightmare for that defense. It's going like, okay, like this is an offense that knows what the hell it's doing, because up to this point, looking at all the teams that the Steelers defense has played, there's not an offense that you look at and go, that inspires fear.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but then on the other side of it, up to this point, the Steelers also had not played a defense that they're like, wow, this is kind of Swiss cheese.
No,
We can
totally,
do whatever we
totally.
want against this defense. And that's why I think it'll be high scoring. Because if I'm remembering correctly, that's what happened last year.
Yep.
Was the Bengals and Steelers ended up having this high scoring affair when we had predicted that game to be like, oh, that's going to be like 13-10, and it was well beyond that by halfway through the first quarter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it just absolutely crazy. But yeah, that will be a loss for sure, I think. And then week 8, we have probably one of the most anticipated games for the NFL executives overall. It is the Green Bay Packers coming into Pittsburgh. Aaron Rodgers, for the first time in his career, playing a game against the Green Bay Packers. And I think he pulls out a win. They're going to both be wearing their god-awful throwback jerseys. But I feel like Aaron Rodgers is going to be a man on a mission that game, and I don't know if anything will stop him from making sure he beats his former team.
We talked about the Bengals defense being bad. This Packers defense is terrible. Like, can anyone name me who their secondary is?
No, because they cut the one guy that everybody knew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they do have Xavier McKinney, and he's a phenomenal safety, but like there are times when we're looking at the camp right now from the Packers where their corners just can't do anything. Yeah. I think the offense is okay. I think there are pieces there. I'm still not fully convinced in what their wide receivers can do or their tight ends can do. Their offensive line is okay, but I do think that this is going to be Aaron Rodgers looking at Matt LaFleur going, told you still got it. Told you guys should have never drafted Mr. Jordan Love. You should have just gotten, like, it's great that you drafted Jordan Love, a wide receiver, in the first round. Maybe you guys should have done that when you had me and Devontae Adams instead of drafting Jordan Love or doing all the other things that you guys have tried to do. And yeah, I think, as we all know, I hate the Packers more than, emo kids hate life, but it's one of those things where I do not see the Packers going into Pittsburgh basically wearing old school Chicago Bears jerseys as well and beating up on the Steelers in this point.
Right, yeah, it's old school Chicago Bears versus the Michigan Wolverines is what those jerseys are going to look like. It's going to be weird.
Yeah.
But then going into week 9, the Steelers stay at home against the Indianapolis Colts, which, we've talked a lot about the Colts this offseason. Is it going to be Anthony Richardson? Is it going to be Daniel Jones? Does it really even matter? And I don't think it does. Unless the Colts go out and make a move and make a trade to bring in a guy like a Kirk Cousins or a Jameis Winston or a Russell Wilson, then maybe this team can do something, because there are some weapons on offense. They have some decent wide receivers. Their defense is no slouch. But it's just like this team is kind of treading water, which they've been doing since Andrew Luck retired. So maybe with the new ownership change because of the death of Jim Irsay, perhaps we see some changes over the next 3 to 5 years and this team becomes good again. We don't know. Right now, it's just, floating out there, hoping to God it doesn't get attacked by sharks, but they're coming into Pittsburgh against a defense that is going to be thirsting for blood. They are going to make quick work of the Colts, I think. But again, as I said, there's like 4 should-win games for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike Tomlin has this freaking thing where every season he drops one game, at least, where it should be an easy win, and all of a sudden the Steelers lose like 21-10. Yeah. So could be this one. Right now, I'm setting this as a win, though.
Yeah, we like to talk about trap games, and this would very much be in a sense of, this is a trap game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see it that way. I think whether you have Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson at starting quarterback position, whether you have Riley Leonard eventually making his way to the starting position, the Colts, their quarterback situation is in such large shambles that I just don't think it's going to matter. I think especially with this being at home in Pittsburgh, it's not a long travel situation for them. Like, it's maybe 2-hour bus ride from Indianapolis to Pittsburgh, but even then, the Steelers are going to feast on this one. I don't think the Colts have that great of a defense. Their edge rushers, they're not getting a ton. They got better on defense this year, but they were horrible last year. And so it's one of those things where I don't have a ton of faith. And with their quarterback situation being as horrible as it is, the Steelers walk away. I think this is probably going to be, without a doubt, the best game of the Steelers for that year. Like, I think you're going to watch this and go like, oh, damn, if only they could play the Colts every single week. They would, like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the hope. But you made a good point that this could be viewed as a trap game as well, because then going into week 10 is really where the meat of this Steelers schedule begins. Week 10 to 14 is truly what's going to be what tests this team and tells me at least whether they are going to be capable of winning a playoff game finally. And it starts in LA against the Chargers.
Yeah.
And I don't have a lot of faith in that first game. I'm not even factoring in guys like Najee Harris. It's more just Herbert is on a mission this year. If he stays healthy past week 1 in Brazil, which is a question mark for me for sure, because we saw what happened last year, week 1 in Brazil. If he's healthy beyond that, though, Justin Herbert is on a mission this year, and Harbaugh has been getting tools in place to see him be successful finally. And I think the Chargers take a win. And frankly, I think they probably will embarrass the Steelers in this game in LA in week 10.
Yeah, I look at this game and I go, you brought up the point of like, this is the real meat and potatoes of the Steelers season. This is the second year of Harbaugh in charge. He's going to be getting insider information from his brother and going like, how do you get your team to kind of get victories over this team? Because his brother has the blueprint of how to do it. And again, 50-50, but you know what I mean. But it's one of those things where, again, I still think Justin Herbert is a top 5 quarterback in this league. He is going to have Ladd McConkey, who's going to be in his second year. He's going to have Keenan Allen back this year, who, again, is going to be playing more of like a utility role, or kind of like a not reserved, but like a secondary role of where he isn't going to be the guy, but they know how to work with each other. You got Omari and Hampton this year. Yes, you did lose Rashawn Slater, but you still have Joe Alt. Like, it's not like this offensive line... They did take a massive hit, but that Chargers team, man, I'm gonna enjoy watching that Chargers team. And I think, like what you said, this is gonna be one of those games where we look at the Steelers and go like, you got embarrassed by a team that is trying to make noise. And Chargers win.
This game was earlier in the season when they were still trying to work out the kinks from losing Rashawn Slater, then I think the Steelers could pull out a win. But by week 10, I think Harbaugh has it locked down and is like, okay, our O-line is going to survive the rest of the year without Slater. Joe Alt's sort of leading the way. But yeah, in the early part of the season, I think the Chargers will struggle because of that loss. By week 10, they probably will beat the Steelers. And then week 11, we have Pittsburgh coming back home after what we both think is going to be an embarrassing loss against the Bengals. Second time around against the Bengals at home. They have a lot of footage that they're going to be able to watch about how Jamar Chase and T. Higgins were playing. And I think this game, we see that defensive juggernaut come out for the Steelers where they go, no, how can you beat us, Joe Burrow, if you cannot use Jamar Chase or T. Higgins? Beat us now. And I don't think the Bengals will be able to answer that. And I think the Steelers will win this one at home.
I think the Steelers are going to be a little bit shell-shocked after that Chargers game, where it's going to be one of those situations of where the team just kind of comes back the next week and goes like, oh, like we have to go up against the Bengals, who we don't know what the Bengals are going to be. We're not going to do a record prediction for them or any other team throughout this year, but it could very easily be a situation where they're looking at the Chargers and almost looking towards the Bengals the following week, and they're going to get beat up so bad that it's that shell shock situation of where it takes them another week to ultimately kind of get recouped. And that's why I have the Bengals winning in this one. And you say, if the Steelers take away T. Higgins and Jamar Chase in that game, well, who do they have? Well, they have Mike Gesicki and they have Chase Brown, who are both still really, really talented options. And I think Chase Brown is going to make a very large statement this year from the running back spot, and we're going to see this Bengals team have a running back that they haven't had since prime Joe Mixon, and that's going to be a really, really good situation. And I think that combination of Chase Brown is going to allow that, and I think this is going to be a much closer game than the first time that these two teams ultimately met up. But I think the Steelers are going to be shell shocked in this game, and they're going to be kind of going like, "Oh man, like we just got bullied. Like we have to go out there and beat this team that beat us in the early part of the year, and then it's going to be a close game that just ultimately falls a little bit flat for them." And so I have the Bengals winning this one and taking the series.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I disagree with the shell shock. I think the reason they get blown out so bad is because they're looking forward to the Bengals. And so they're going to look at it and go, okay, well, we got dummied last week because we were preparing for this. So we
Yeah.
have to double down and show why we got beat so bad last week. You know, this is one of those games where, yeah, I think it's going to be really close. And I think ultimately it's going to be sealed with TJ Watt besting Joe Burrow yet again.
Yeah.
It'll be the defense winning the game while the Bengals are trying to make a drive to win it at the end.
And now for the game that you and I, yep.
Yep, we're both looking forward to this one. You know, we keep hoping that this is going to be a future Super Bowl. It still may be at some point. But the Steelers are traveling to Soldier Field to take on the Bears, Caleb Williams, Ben Johnson. Well, as you said earlier in the podcast, that Caleb Williams is kind of being viewed as a rookie this year. And as we talked about with J.J. McCarthy and the Vikings, Mike Tomlin and this Pittsburgh Steelers defense tends to feast on rookies. And I think that's what is going to happen here. It's going to be a great game. Two of the best secondaries in the league. I think it's going to be a turnover-heavy game. It's going to be sloppy and messy. We're going to be right into November by this point, if I'm not mistaken. And so we could have some nasty weather as well. It's going to be a close game. It's going to be a gritty game. It's going to be a fun game to watch, but I think the Steelers are going to win this one.
When I say the Bears are viewing Caleb Williams as a little bit of a rookie, they're saying that from the standpoint of like Eberflus and Waldron were just such dumbasses that basically everything that they did doesn't count. But the difference between Caleb and JJ is that Caleb played a full 17 slate of games. He has seen the way that the NFL works, and he's going to have that opportunity for the game to become much slower for him. And we're at the stage of the season where the offense, they're going to know exactly what's going to happen. And I think this is going to be the big thing where the Bears are going to look at the Steelers defense and go, you're not terrifying. You're not like, we're not scared of what you can do, because, you know, you guys went up against that Bengals offense when they have so many guys. Well, guess what? We have this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy. And then we can also do this, this, and this with this, that, and that. And Caleb is going to be fully comfortable with that Ben Johnson offense, because we're at the point where we saw when the Lions started to kind of move that one and really get that offense going under Ben Johnson, right around that point where even if you add like one or two extra games just because it's a little bit younger of a quarterback, then we're going to see that go. But the other big reason why I have this game going for the Bears is Mike Tomlin's record against Chicago. Mike Tomlin does not play well against Chicago, where he has a grand total of 1 win in his career, and that last win was bullshit, and we all know the Steelers should have lost that because the refs gave it to the Steelers.
Yep.
And
but on the flip side of that, there also is a quarterback playing for the Steelers that claims to own the Chicago Bears, be a part owner. And so one of those things is going to have to break. Either Aaron Rodgers will no longer own the Bears at Soldier Field, or Mike Tomlin will be able to get himself a win.
yeah,
So,
but it's no surprise that both of us are picking our teams to win this game. Like,
yeah, no shock there at all.
Yeah,
But either way, that's going to be a fun one. You know, that's going to be one that we may be trying to find a way that we can get together and watch it, because that'll be an entertaining game either way.
Yes.
Following that game against the Bears, the Steelers continue their travels through tough teams. They come back home and they face the Buffalo Bills. I think this is going to be a loss. I think the Bills are going to come into Pittsburgh. It's similar weather for, stadiums and everything for these two teams. I think the Bills are just going to be hitting their stride at this point for the season, and they're going to be able to pick up a win. It'll be close, it'll be good, but it will be Josh Allen essentially deciding to end the game.
Yeah, I think we saw Josh Allen ultimately get the MVP award last year. I think when we've talked about Joe Burrow being a man on a mission, it's kind of getting to the point with Josh Allen where we're sitting back and saying, if it's not now, then is it going to be ever? Because he clearly has the talent, he has the teams to do so, but he hasn't been able to get past Joe Burrow. He hasn't been able to get past Patrick Mahomes. And I think he's going to be a man just so dedicated to try to get to this point. The Steelers are just going to, I think, just be a bug on the windshield while the Bills just kind of continue to walk by. I don't think this is going to be a close game. I think the defense is potentially going to get a little bit overwhelmed in that one. And I think the Bills defense is going to really look at the Steelers offense and go, I think you're probably going to see at this point in the season, similar to what we saw with Matt Canada at around this point, where there's going to be chants in the stadium of saying fire Arthur Smith, similar to fire Canada.
Maybe. That's very possible. I think the Steelers are just going to be exhausted when this game rolls around. After a tough game against the Bears and then the Bengals the week before, I think they're just going to be gassed.
Yeah.
Is what's ultimately going to happen.
That's another good point.
And then we go into week 14. The Steelers travel to Baltimore for the first of the two matchups between these two fierce rivals, and I think the Steelers are going to drop this game in Baltimore to Lamar Jackson and the Ravens.
Last thing I want to say about the Bills is that's also likely probably going to be the audition tape for Joe Douglas, the offensive coordinator for the Bills, to potentially say, hey, Steelers, do you want some offensive firepower? Or not Joe Douglas, Joe Brady.
Joe Brady.
Yeah. I think that's potentially going to be Joe Brady's audition tape, similar to when Ben Johnson last season on Thanksgiving said to the Bears, hi.
Yeah, I mean, I would love that. I've been saying that for almost 2 seasons now, that Joe Brady is in my top 3 for a guy I would love to see take the helm of this Steelers team after Mike Tomlin.
Funny enough, however, in this week where they go up against the Ravens, I think the Ravens offensive coordinator, Todd Monken, is also potentially going to be saying this audition tape of going, you guys want a hard-ass coach that knows how to get offense going? Well, here's what we're going to do. And yeah, a lot of the things that you're saying, like this Steelers team, they're going to be exhausted, man. They've just played war after war after war. And I think, again, the Ravens, they're trying to make this case this year of where they're sitting back and saying, like, we can be a Super Bowl contender, and they're going to go out there, and I think they're going to beat up the Steelers in this one.
Yeah, like I said, this closes out that juggernaut part of the schedule for the Steelers in Baltimore against the Ravens. So I expect a loss here also. And then thankfully, we get into a little bit of an easier end to the schedule this year, unlike last year. Steelers get to go back home and they play the Miami Dolphins. That is a easy win. Late November, early December, when's that game set to take place? That is December 15th. So middle of December. It is a primetime game.
Is it in Pittsburgh?
It is in Pittsburgh, so it's going to be cold. It's going to be snowy. The Dolphins don't stand a shot here, I don't think. But again, this is one of those easy win games. I could see Mike Tomlin maybe dropping, but as it stands right now, just looking at the game without factoring that in, the Steelers win this one. This is their sort of bounce back to go, okay, we've still got a decent record. We can still make the playoffs. We got to get things rolling. And they do that against the Dolphins.
Yeah, whether Tua is still breathing at this point, we know Tua has always struggled in the cold wherever he has been. I think this is without a doubt a victory for the Steelers. This is one of those games where we talked about, they should win, and this could be one of those games. I still think the Dolphins are going to be a lot better than what people are predicting them to be, because I've seen people go like, the Dolphins are only going to win 4 to 5 games. I think the Dolphins are going to be a 9 to 10 win team this year. I don't think they're going to be able to beat the Steelers in this game.
Yeah, 100%. And then the next week we have Pittsburgh traveling to Detroit to take on the Lions. Indoors, so no weather, no elements to deal with at this point, but we don't know what the Detroit Lions are necessarily going to look like without Ben Johnson.
And
This
Aaron
was a
Glenn.
tough one for me. I'm basically basing this game and this prediction on what the rest of the talent was able to do last year. Goff and St. Brown and Gibbs and Laporta. And for that reason, I think the Steelers go into Detroit and lose to the Lions. This is a team that Aaron Rodgers is very familiar with, though, so maybe he's got some tricks up his sleeve and something changes. But as it stands, I think this is a loss for Pittsburgh in Detroit.
Yeah, I solely go off of this. I think the loss of Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn for the Lions is going to be a massive thing, and I think this Lions team is going to struggle mightily this season because of that. But they also have a roster. They have a top 5 roster in the NFL. Like, that team, all in all, is just really, 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 really good. And so I just sit back and I say I don't think the Steelers go into Detroit and win that game. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a hard-fought game, but I think it's going to be the one that the Lions ultimately walk away with.
Yeah, 100%. And then the following week, the Steelers travel to Cleveland to take on the Browns for the second time. Browns at this point are likely eliminated from the playoffs. It's going to be a messy game. I hate when they have to play the Browns this late in the season because somebody's going to get hurt.
Yeah.
It's like Myles Garrett's going to be hitting hard. TJ Watt's going to be hitting hard. It's going to be an ugly, nasty game. Steelers are going to win because they're frustrated over that loss to the Lions the week before, and they're like, we are not dropping a game this late in the year to the Browns. And I think the Steelers go into Cleveland, get themselves another win.
One thing we haven't talked about with this particular game, it could be so far late into the season at this point where Mason Rudolph is starting, and we could have that famous moment. We could have part 2, Electric Boogaloo, Mason Rudolph, Myles Garrett. We've already seen Myles Garrett pick up another Steelers helmet before and kind of give that, whoa, that's not me, guys. But there could be that situation that late in the season where the Green Lantern voice or Green Goblin voice starts chanting at him, going like, "Do it," and
right? He said the N-word. Get him.
Like it's
right.
It's Mason Rudolph in a Steelers jersey. Kill. But yeah, right. No, I mean, think the
same could be said about the Browns by this point. Like by this late in the season, like who's throwing the ball for them? Is it Flacco? Is it Sanders? Is it Gabriel? Is it
Kenny
Huntley?
Pickett?
Is it Pickett? Like that's what I mean. There's
it's such a mess, and that's why I have the Steelers winning this game. I think, the Browns are just too confusing this year.
Yeah, 100%. And then to close out the season, the Steelers get to come back home, playing the Ravens in the closing game. I think the Steelers finish this season strong. This game, I think it'll be much like last year where the Ravens have already got their playoff spot locked down, so we're not going to see Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, guys like that play. So I think the Steelers at home against backups of the Ravens get themselves a fairly easy win to close out the season.
I don't think we're going to see the Ravens in a position of I think the Ravens are going to be in a position of where they do have a playoff spot locked up, but they're going to be trying to fight for that number 1 seed with either the Bills, the Bengals, or the Chiefs. And so I think you're actually going to see them play a lot of those guys. And for that reason is why I think you're going to see the Ravens actually win this game, because I think they're going to be looking at the Steelers going, we have the opportunity to A, potentially eliminate the Steelers from making the playoffs, and B, potentially giving us the first overall seed. Because when we talk about the AFC, it really is the Chiefs, the Bengals, the Bills, and the Ravens are all the 4 teams that have the likely possibility of getting that first overall seed. And when I say the Bengals, I mean if their offense continues to do what they do, and if they have a top 20 defense, they'll be in that conversation. But even if it's just the Chiefs and the Bills that you're looking at in that conversation, man, like I think it's going to be a tight race up until this last one to see who gets that number one seed. And I think the Ravens are going to be fighting for it, and they're likely going to have their starters out there, which means even though we often see almost every year that these two teams split, there's just something telling me that it's like if the starters are playing and the Ravens are fighting for something, I think you see the Ravens win that game. Now, if the Ravens don't have their starters out there, I will happily change my prediction and go Steelers will likely win that game. But yeah, other than that, I there's just something telling me that the Ravens are going to be fighting for that number one spot, and they're going to take it to the Steelers.
That's fair. Yeah. I mean, for myself, even if it is that situation and it's the starters in Pittsburgh against the Ravens, I still think the Steelers would win that game. Because I joked to you when we were talking about this beforehand, I pulled out the dodgeball reference. I was like, bold prediction, Cotton. Because I can't remember the last time the Bengals and the Ravens both swept the Steelers in a single season.
Yeah.
In the last 5 years, only the Bengals have done it once. The Steelers have swept the Ravens multiple times, and then it's usually split. It's usually split the Bengals and the Steelers, and the Browns, it's either split or the Steelers just destroy them.
Yeah. And
so I couldn't find a year going back. I didn't go, 15, 20 years back, but at least up to like 5 to 10, I could not find a single season. So that was where I was like, I don't think that'll happen.
I know what you mean, but like for the reason, like, and I even said to you, I was like, I got my reasons for it, and every single one of those reasons that I said to you, you basically are like, I get it. But like, I like even then, like I'm still sitting back going like, it's so unlikely that it's going to be both sweeping. But like those are the reasons why I would see it that way. For yourself, I know you gave your Steelers an 11-6 overall record. I gave the Steelers a 9-8 record.
Yep.
Both which are possible
funnily enough, I think we look at this, and as I said, I think one of those easy wins they will drop. So I really think they'll probably end up 10-7. And looking at your predictions, I go, I don't think they get swept by both, so I think they take one of those wins.
So it's probably a 10-7.
I have a feeling it'll be a 10-7 team, unless Aaron Rodgers does special things. Because being realistic about it, I know he's old. Yeah. I didn't want him here. But looking at this offense, it is the best offense the Steelers have put on the field since Ben Roethlisberger was there. It is the best looking offense they've had. So there's that at least. There is something to maybe look forward to. Whether Aaron Rodgers and his repaired Achilles and his old man fucking body can hold up through a season in the AFC North, that's question mark. But we know Money Mason can. We know Mason Rudolph can do that. And he's rocking that cop stash right now, and I'm digging it. And
someone get him away from Myles Garrett.
I said it before they even signed Rodgers. I was saying it all off season. As soon as they re-signed Mason Rudolph and brought him back, I said, give him the keys. Let him run this team.
You and I were saying the exact same thing, buddy.
Exactly.
We said the exact same thing.
I would have loved to see Mason Rudolph run this team. And if that was the case, I still would likely be predicting an 11-6/10-7 record.
Yeah. It's the Steelers. It's either going to be 9-8, 10-7, or 11-6. There's not going to be higher. There's not going to be lower. That is what the Steelers are, and everyone knows it.
I would say they're not going to be lower, but you never know. They could be higher. I will say that is possible just because, like, this defense that's been constructed right now, it does have the potential and the talent there to be a historic defense.
We've said that the last 5 years.
I know I'm a fanboy. I know I'm a gainer for the team, but I just look at the roster and what's there. It has that potential to not only be the number one this season, but to be a historic level defense.
The only pushback that I'd say with that is we've been saying that historic defense for the last 5 years. That's the only. But other than that, I agree. I know you haven't. A lot of people have though. I know you haven't, but the narrative around the Steelers defense the last 5 years has been this can be an historic defense. And
Yeah, I've disagreed with that when they said that. I was like, it's top 5, but I've never thought it was going to be historic.
yeah,
I look at, and this year I do think with those additions to the secondary and the additions to the linebackers as well, there's too much potential there that I think it could just end up being the same as it has been the last 5. But I think this is the year where I'm saying it could be historic.
yeah. Now moving over to my Chicago Bears, and I struggled with this one, man, for predicting my team, because there are games that I'm looking at and going, they cannot lose this game. And it pains me when I have the record there because, again, if you've watched the podcast for any length of time, you know when it comes to Sterling, he's always glass half full type guy for his team, and I am the glass is damn near empty with my fucking team. Even it could be as full as it could possibly be. I'm going to be, well, the glass is actually not that full, and you need to fill it a lot more for me to be satisfied. Because, again, the Bears have just broken and beaten me down as badly as they have been. But week number 1.
Well, that being said, I will say this is the first time we've done predictions. I'm not going to say what the records are, but where you predicted your team with a better win-loss ratio than I did.
Yeah. And
So
that's
that
what
is
scares me.
That is a unique take this year. Is usually I'm giving your Bears more wins than you are. This year you have done that.
Yeah, which this is why I'm sitting back going like, I'm like looking around going, did I consume edibles? Did I accidentally smoke crack this morning that I forgot about? And none of that has come to fruition. But let's kick things off. Week number 1, Monday Night Football against the Minnesota Vikings, where the Bears are at home. I think this is going to be a really interesting game because the Bears' offense is not likely going to be where it needs to be, but the Vikings also basically have, like, this is JJ McCarthy's first game as a starting quarterback in the NFL. I think the Bears' defense is going to be the cause for this game to be a win because Dennis Allen is making life really, really hard on teams. And again, we talked about it earlier in the podcast where we're in those joint practices, he made Tua and Josh Allen's life very, very difficult. The Bears have, in my opinion, one of the best secondaries in the NFL. They have a really, really good linebacking core. Defensive line, I've got question marks on. I still got concerns about. But if Dennis Allen does what Dennis Allen does, and when he has a defense, they're often top 10 to top 5. Going up against a quarterback that has not seen this caliber of stuff, I think that's going to be the biggest reason the Bears get this win in week 1.
Yeah, and I'll agree with you in that the Bears defense needs to be the reason this team wins this game because out of the 4 squads we're going to see, Bears offense, defense, Vikings offense, defense, the only one that I know what I'm looking at and I'm completely confident in is the Vikings defense because of what it was last year and what it is coming into this year. It is the same.
Yeah.
We know what it's going to produce. There's question marks around the other 3, and that's where the Bears defense needs to step up and make life difficult for McCarthy so that the Bears offense can comfortably operate and not need to take too many risks against that Vikings defense. But I do think that the Bears win.
Last thing I will say, though, is that the last 2 years, Brian Flores' defenses, I think they've only had games of where they've allowed 30 points like 5 or 6 times. 4 of those occasions came against Ben Johnson. So Ben Johnson knows how to fuck with Brian Flores. Like that is one of those things where it's like he knows how to deal with Brian Flores.
Yeah, I just think it'll be too early in the season for the offense to click that high to be able to get that 30, 35 points. I think it'll be...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Going into week number 2, it is Ben Johnson returning against the Lions, and I think this is just going to be one of those weeks early on in the season where the offense is still trying to get everything situated and sorted. And I think the Lions, again, I still think the Lions have a better constructed team. I think the Lions are going to be a little bit more discombobulated. I think this is going to be a really close game that ultimately results in who has the football last. And I'm just going to say it's going to be the Lions in this case. I think both teams are going to be in an absolute battle, and it's going to be really, really, really close. It's going to be entertaining as shit to watch. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, this is probably going to be one of the favorite games that I watch early in the year, and I'm not even going to be upset when the Bears end up losing this game. I think it's going to be close, but I do think the Lions come away with the win.
Yeah, I agree. This is going to be an entertaining one because this is the Bears still getting used to having Ben Johnson, and it's the Lions getting used to no longer having Ben Johnson.
Yeah, it's
It
the
is the
Ben
Ben
Johnson
Johnson.
game.
Right? And so I think what it's going to come down to is the talent on the field, and I think Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think they're gonna take this game over and ultimately be the reasons that win. I do think you're right. It's going to come down to that final possession. It's going to be, do the Lions kick a field goal to win it, or do the Bears miss a field goal to lose it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next game, the Bears go to Dallas to face the Cowboys in what is going to be a revenge game for Matt Eberflus because he is now the Cowboys defensive coordinator. Bears are going to win this game because one thing we know about Ben Johnson is he is petty as fuck. He is petty, petty, petty. When the Lions ended up losing to the Cowboys on that situation of where, the offensive lineman said that he was in and didn't happen.
Yeah.
Well, the next year, what did the Lions do to the Cowboys? They beat them up so brutally badly that it was one of those things where it was just like, okay, you can stop now. And Ben Johnson's like, no, I'm going to keep shooting this horse with a rocket launcher. And like, I'm not even just kicking a dead horse, I'm exploding it with various different weapons. And I also think this is going to be kind of like a Caleb Williams revenge game, looking over to Matt Eberflus going, you done did messed up. Like you had taken experience away from me. I don't think the Cowboys have that great of an offense. They're going to have no run game whatsoever. I think CeeDee Lamb, he's going to be introduced to Jalen Johnson, and Jalen Johnson is going to go, hi, you want to meet the best corner in football? Have fun with that. George Pickens, he's going to make one excellent catch in that game, but that's going to be it. He's going to end up fighting Tariq Stevenson in that one. That's going to be a fun boxing match, but yeah, I think the Bears, with the pettiness of Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams really wanting to show that he's going to dominate his former head coach, who's now the defensive coordinator of the other team. I think the Bears, you're going to see this game be one of those things where it's like, oh shit.
Yeah, I do agree. I do think the Bears win this game, but this was a tough one for me to choose because Matt Eberflus was really good at making Caleb Williams look bad, and I wonder if he can still do that maybe. That's my only question mark, is does he still have the ability to somehow make Caleb Williams look bad? Because he did that a lot last year, and that was really my only argument for maybe the Cowboys get a win, but I do have the Bears winning this one.
Next up, we have the Bears. Again, they do have a bye week in week 5, so this is the last game before they go to their bye week. They take on the Las Vegas Raiders. I think this is actually going to be a fairly decently close game for both the Bears and the Raiders, because the Raiders, they're going to have this Pete Carroll team. Geno Smith is going to come in. I'm terrified of what Brock Bowers is potentially going to do to my linebacking core, because Tremaine Edmonds, he just does not do well against good tight ends. I'm a little bit scared of what Ashton Genty could potentially do against the running game. But I also look at the Raiders defense and go, it's Max Crosby and who the fuck else?
Yep.
If you can isolate Max Crosby, can anyone tell me anyone in their secondary?
Right. And I mean, as long as the Bears can get their offense functioning by this point, then yeah, they should be fine.
Well, I think even if they're only half functioning at this point, I don't think the Raiders' offense is going to be clicking at such a high rate other than Genty and Bowers. But I just look at the Bears' offense and go, they're going to have too much firepower that Caleb Williams is going to have one of those games where it's like 215 yards for 2 touchdowns, and the Bears are going to walk away with the win in this one, just because the Raiders defense, I know, listening to what my old man says, he's like, well, this is the 5th year of Patrick Graham as the defensive coordinator. I'm like, that's great. You have Max Crosby and no one else. Well, we have so-and-so. It's like, that's great. Has he done anything? Well, yeah, he's good for the Raiders. That's awesome that he's good for the Raiders. But does he make another team's starting lineup? It's Raiders. Like, it's time to put the diaper on.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, I think the Bears
do agree that this is a win for the Bears against the Raiders.
Next up, we have the revenge game from last year where the Bears go to Washington for the 3rd straight year in a row to play the Commanders. I think the Bears walk away with a win this year. I think the Bears lost that game to the Commanders last year, and it destroyed their season. There's a lot of guys still on this roster that felt that pain from last year. The other thing is, who did the Lions get eliminated to in the playoffs last year? The Commanders. And Ben Johnson, as we all know, is petty.
Yeah.
And the Bears' offensive line is better. Caleb Williams is more experienced. And I think this is going to be one of those situations where you are not, again, like they're coming off of the bye to come into this game. Ben Johnson is going to have this team so utterly focused that they could win this game and then fall off for like the next 3 weeks because they were so locked in and focused on getting this win. I think the Bears defense last year gave Jaden Daniels the worst game of his season last year, other than Tyreek Stevenson making a really dumb move at the end of the game. Jaden Daniels was worse than Caleb Williams in that football game. I think the Bears are going to come out and win this game, and it's going to be a close battle, though.
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to be a close battle. I think it's still going to be too early in the season for this offense to be able to keep up with what the Commanders' offense was able to do at least last year. We don't know what it's going to look like this year, but there's been very little changes. And so I do think this game is going to be very similar to what it was last year. And I think the result is going to be the same. Not in as dramatic a fashion. I do think the Commanders will win. I think the Bears lose this game. But I also don't think this loss results in the derailment of their season like it did last year.
Undoubtedly. And I would be a little bit more upset with a loss in this game. Like, this is one of those games where I always look at like 2 or 3 games per year where it's like, this is kind of one of those games that would be an unacceptable loss. And this might just be the Bears fan in me just hating what happened last year and the narrative surrounding both of these two teams' quarterback. I still think Caleb Williams is a better quarterback than Jaden Daniels. One guy just simply had a better season than the other did last year. Look at the circumstances that both had. But regardless, I think Bears are gonna win. You think Commanders are gonna win. Either way, I think both possibilities are there. Week following, Bears face the Saints. Saints are going to have the number 1 pick next year for a very, very good reason. Bears are going to basically look at them. And this is kind of a Dennis Allen revenge game in a sense of going like, hey, who's your guys' offense? Oh, you got Alvin Kamara? Aw, that's cute. And it's not going to be close.
No, this will be an easy, what I would view as a bounce back win for the Bears against the Saints.
Yeah. Now we start to get into the part of the season of where the Bears start to have some trickier matchups. They go up against the Ravens. I think the Bears defense is going to give the Ravens all they can. I think the lack of high-end edge rushing talent is going to really hurt them. I think the Bears, with their struggles in the run game these last couple seasons, I think Derrick Henry is going to be a factor in this one. I don't have as much faith in this Ravens defense as a lot of people do, but I do think the Ravens are going to come away with the victory in this one just because their offense is just going to be a little bit too much for this Bears defense at this stage of the season. And I still don't think the Bears are going to be clicking on all cylinders on offense at that point to keep the, like, I think it's going to be like a 10-point difference in this one, unfortunately. Yeah. But yeah, I think the Ravens come away with the win.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Bears lose this game to the Ravens. I am a little more hyped on that Ravens defense. I mean, not so hyped about it, but I'm like
you think positively
they
with that.
They improved vastly that secondary led by Kyle Hamilton. I think they're gonna get into Caleb Williams' head a little bit. I think they're gonna force him into a couple of turnovers, and that's where the Ravens will win this game, because between that and Derrick Henry just running roughshod on this not great run defense, that's where it's going to come down to for sure.
After the Bears face off against the Ravens, they go up against the Bengals.
Yep.
Other than Caleb Williams, Joe Burrow is my favorite quarterback in the NFL, and I would, if you were to say to me right now, would you rather have Caleb Williams or Joe Burrow? I'm taking Joe Burrow. Like, I don't think that's a very outrageous thing for even me, a hardcore Bears fan, to sit back and say. I think this this Bengals offense is going to be firing on all cylinders. I think when we talked about the Bengals and our Steelers having a shootout of an offensive game, this could easily be a game where it's like 54 to like 44 type situation, of where it is just points. No defense is getting any sort of stop. I would sit back and say the biggest thing, I know you said, Jalen Ramsey could potentially meet up against Jamar Chase. This is going to be Jalen Johnson, Jamar Chase battle. I think both are going to have really good games against each other. Mm-hmm. Then, T. Higgins going up, whoever's going to be playing second corner, whether just kind of what happens. But it's going to be a high-scoring game. That one, I think that the Bengals are just going to come out with the win, just because there's just that little bit more of that proven offense here at the moment.
Yeah, I think so too. It's good. Most of the Bengals games are going to be either shootouts or blowouts, because that defense is at the moment looking like Swiss cheese.
Yeah.
And so either you are going to put up a lot of points and try to keep pace with Joe Burrow, or you're not, and you're going to watch the number go up on the other side of the scoreboard.
Yeah, it's going to be me at one point in the game going like, I'm wearing my Caleb Williams jersey, and I'm slowly taking it off to reveal the Joe Burrow jersey.
Right. Because, yeah, I don't know if the offense will be clicking enough to keep pace with Joe Burrow at this point.
Yeah. Next game, the Bears go up against the Giants. I think the Bears win that game. I think the Giants have a really, really good defense. Their offense is... They have an offense. I don't think they necessarily have a great offensive line. They don't necessarily have great wide receivers other than Malik Neighbors, but I think Malik Neighbors is going to get a large, healthy dose of Jalen Johnson.
Yep.
And whether it's Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, or Jackson Dart, I don't think the Giants compete in this game. I think the Bears just kind of walk in and go, hello, and goodbye.
Yep. No, and that's what I feel about the Giants in most games this year, is it's going to be, if you've got Malik Neighbors on your fantasy team, you're going to get good points either way, because whether it's Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston throwing the ball, they're going to air it out for Neighbors, and he's going to get a big one every game. But the Bears just are more well-rounded at this point, and the Bears win this one against the Giants.
Next up, the Vikings. We go to Minnesota this time. I think this is going to be a really close game. Obviously, the Bears get the victory earlier on in the season. However, I think this is just going to be one of those things of where both offenses are either going to have a little bit of struggles in this game because both defenses are starting to click and have a really good one, or both offenses are just firing on all cylinders, and it's just going to be a shootout between these two teams. But with the experience of Kevin O'Connell at this stage of the year, and just how smart and heads up type coach that he is, I think that is going to be the key difference in this game that's ultimately going to result in the Vikings getting the win. I don't think it's going to be a game where necessarily JJ McCarthy plays better than Caleb Williams. It's just going to be one of those things where it's just you have a coach that has 4 years of experience versus a coach who's on his rookie season, essentially. And I think that's going to be the ultimate difference in why we see the Vikings get that victory.
Yeah, this is going to be a close one for sure. This also begins a bit of a skid that I've got for the Bears on their schedule, because I do also have them losing to the Vikings here.
We already talked about the Bears and Steelers. I say the Bears are going to win. You say the Steelers are going to win. We already talked about those points, so no reason to rehash that one. Then the Bears face off against the Eagles in Philadelphia on, I think this is the Black Friday game. It's still just a little too early for the Bears to sit back and say that they're going to compete against the best roster in football. I think the Bears are going to give this Eagles team everything they possibly can. I think it's just going to be the Eagles just kind of having a methodical win. They're not going to blow out the Bears. The Bears are going to keep this somewhat competitive. It's just going to be the Eagles just simply just having the better roster. And it's just going to be a little bit too much for this Bears team at this stage of where they're at. And so I think the Eagles take it.
This is going to be a good time for this litmus test for the Bears as well.
Yeah.
You are going up against the best. You're going up against what is very likely the Super Bowl favorite at this point in time as well. It is. It's just the Eagles are so well-rounded at every position that I think they're going to be able to handle the Bears. The real question is just going to be, how do the Bears handle this adversity? Are they going to keep fighting through? Is it going to derail the rest of their season? This will be the derail game for them if it happens this year, in my opinion. I don't think it will, but I do think they lose to the Eagles because it's just they're not ready to compete with the NFC, the best team in the NFC yet.
Yeah. Bears go into Green Bay the next game, and Caleb Williams is 1-0 against the Green Bay Packers when playing in Green Bay. He continues that. The Packers do not play well against the NFC North teams. They were 1-4. They were 1-5 last year, and they should have been 0-6 last year. They only beat the Bears once because of a blocked field goal. Caleb Williams obviously did enough to get the win in the final game of the season. I think the Bears are going to be firing on all cylinders at this point on offense. And as I've discussed before, I do not think the Packers have that good of a defense. And yeah, I think the Bears defense will be playing a lot more consistently at this point, to the point where they're going to be able to slow Jordan Love down a lot more than they already have. I think Dennis Allen is a better defensive mind than Matt Eberflus was, and Matt Eberflus made it tricky for this Packers offense. So I think the Bears go into Green Bay and win.
Yeah, this was a difficult one for me. All the Packers ones were, really, because they have had an extremely rough training camp. A lot of injuries cropping up for the Packers. So we don't know what this team's going to look like in week 1, let alone week 10, week 15. We don't know. I still think, the Bears still, even though they won that game in the finale last year, I think they still have this monkey on their back of Lambeau Field. And I don't know if the offense will be fully firing yet, with Caleb Williams being a little younger. Come next year, I think I'll feel very differently, but I think at this point, when they go into Lambeau Field, I think the Bears lose to the Packers.
I don't respect your opinion on this one, but
No.
Yep. Bears then face off against the Cleveland Browns, and the Browns are just one of those teams that we've talked about. They're just a mess. Like, I'm a little bit scared of Myles Garrett and Mason Graham on that defensive side of the ball, but the Bears do have a better offensive line this year, and they're going to do a lot more on the offense. I just don't think the Browns are going to do enough to compete, because whether it's Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, insert name here, quarterback, I'm just not confident in them being able to win this game.
No,
So
no,
Bears
it's
win.
the exact same argument I made for both those games that the Steelers will play against them. The Browns are just the Browns. They will find a way to lose games. They will find a way to mess things up. You're right to be worried about Myles Garrett and Mason Graham because they could get after Caleb Williams, and we don't want to see that for your young quarterback. This is a game where it's like if you got to throw it away and you throw a pick, do that instead of taking the hit because getting hit by Myles Garrett can be career altering. Ask Mason Rudolph.
I was gonna say, especially if your helmet comes off.
Exactly. But yeah, I do think the Bears win this game against the Browns.
Then we have the Packers this time coming into Soldier Field. I think this is actually going to be a closer game than what the first one was when they're in Green Bay. I think the Packers are going to come back with like, oh, we own this place, and they're actually going to play it a little bit better. But ultimately, I still have the Bears winning this game because fuck the Packers. That's all the reason I need.
And I feel the opposite. I think that game at Lambeau will be close, and I think after that big win against the Browns, they go back home, have the Packers coming into town, and they go, we almost had them in Lambeau. Let's show them why we're the up and comers. And I think the Bears beat the Packers pretty handily in this game and make the Packers look bad.
Then the second last game of the year, the Bears face off against the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers, it seemed like they're this team that the Bears play every single year, and it's almost like a little bit of rivalry between these two teams because it seems like one year the Bears win, the next year the 49ers win. I still think the 49ers are a really good team all put together. And I have the 49ers winning this game just because I think they're going to be just a little bit more consistent. And I think Brock Purdy, obviously, he has the experience in the NFL and knows the Kyle Shanahan system. And I think the 49ers will kind of have some of the bugs fixed at this point in the year. And I think this is going to be a really, really fun game to watch just because, again, Kyle Shanahan, for years and years and years, I've been saying is my favorite offensive-minded coach. I still, like, if I were to run an offense, I would go with the Shanahan offense as opposed to the Ben Johnson offense. But I'm still loving what Ben Johnson does, and he made me basically like a semi-Lions fan for the last 2 years because of what he was capable of doing. This is going to be a really, really fun game to watch offensively just because of the things that are going to happen. I just think the 49ers, just that little bit more experience with that roster, is going to come away with the win there.
Yeah, the 49ers are a tough one because we don't know what this team is. They lost pieces in the offseason. Ayuk still hasn't done any practicing. Juwan Jennings just picked up an injury in training camp here. Like their receiving core is Ricky Pearsall and George Kittle.
Yeah.
And then we've got a duct taped together Christian McCaffrey. Are we going to get touchdown every game and almost 2,000 yards Christian McCaffrey, or are we going to get halfway through week 1 and never see him again? Like we don't know.
Yeah.
It is so hard to predict what the 49ers are going to look like at the late stage of the season. So much like I did with the Lions on my side of it, I'm basing it more on what the 49ers have been able to do with Shanahan. And I just think the 49ers at home against the Bears will be able to beat them, and the Bears will lose this. If this was at Soldier Field, I might have gone the other way with this one.
And to close off the game or the season for the Bears, they face off against the Lions. And I think it's going to be one of those things where after that week 2 loss, Ben Johnson is going to kind of have this one penciled in. He's going to have a little bit more information of going like, okay, I know what your new DC is doing now. And the Bears offense is going to feel a lot more confident. Yeah. And I think they're going to sneak out a win. It's going to be another close game. It's going to be a tough fought battle between both of these two teams. But I do think the Bears are actually going to get this victory over the Lions in this penultimate game just because they're going to be a little bit more experienced.
Yeah, I agree with everything except for the outcome. I think the Bears lose this one to the Lions as well. I think this is starting to kickstart sort of that storyline for Ben Johnson where it's like he's building this team and the hump he's going to have to get over is beating his former team. I don't think he does it at all in this first year against the Lions. I think he loses both games, and that sort of, invigorates him for next year. Going, okay, both of these games are going to be circled in red, and he's going to be like, we have to win these games. These are important ones. I think that's a storyline build. It used to be, can the Bears beat the Packers? Blah blah blah. It's old news. That's Aaron Rodgers. That's old news. I think what it's going to be is, can Ben Johnson beat the Lions? I think that's the story going for the future for the next 2 to 4 years for this Bears team. It's going to be fun to watch as he builds that and overcomes that.
Yeah, it's something that I'm excited to see. I have a lot more respect for the Lions organization than I do the Packers. I have more respect for the Vikings organization than I do the Packers, because I think we can all agree, fuck the Packers.
Yep.
I think you would even agree in that department.
I do, because they took a Super Bowl away from me.
They take years off my life for me, so but I have the Bears going 11-6, and you have the Bears going 7-10.
Yep.
So a little bit more of a split on this one. Again, very, very weird that I'm the one being more optimistic about the Bears, which scares the hell out of me.
Understandable. And I mean, that 7-10 for me is not pessimistic either. That is the optimistic outcome in my view. Like, I look at that 7-10, it's going to be with a lot of close losses. That's going to be the thing. It's not going to be heartbreaking losses. It's not going to be blowout losses. It's not going to be, what was this team doing? It's going to be, they almost had that. They almost got that one. And that is a big thing for this team going forward, because that's a lot of good things for them to build on going into the next season. I don't expect them to make that big leap to be a guaranteed playoff team. I think I am predicting on the low side. I think they more likely will end up at 8 or 9 wins than the 7. But much like I did with the Steelers, I just took it game by game rather than trying to factor in what happens throughout. You know what I mean? And
no, like I know exactly what you're saying.
Exactly. Like, I think the Steelers will actually end with a slightly lower record. I think the Bears will end with a slightly higher record.
Yeah.
But this is sort of where I think this is still a good 7-10. We talked about it the last few years where it was, I think, the Cardinals who had a terrible record, and we were like, that's a really good losing record team right there. I can't remember if it was the Cardinals or who it was, but
I think it was the Cardinals like 2 or 3 years ago when we kind of had that discussion.
This is the best losing record team we've seen in a while.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it'll be with the Bears. We're looking at them, it's, whatever they end up at, and I'm going to be like, they easily could have been a 10, 11, or 12 win team if the wind had just blown the other direction.
Yeah.
Right?
But that is it for this, guys, and those are our record predictions. As we typically do, we'll come back, in that first week of the playoffs and go like, hey, look at how wrong we were, or look at how right we were. And hopefully both of our teams are in the playoffs at that point, so we can still have some joy with us in life. But for Sterling, I'm Brendan, saying thank you all very much for watching. Peace.